Welcome to another episode of Go FUD Yourself. We are in season 3, and this is our second crypto arms race of season 3. So instead of visiting the same places in the world that we went last time, we have a few new places with a new guest. Christine, how are you?
Very well, thanks. How are you?
I am incredible. You know, we're talking a lot about Latin America today. Have you been to LATAM? Is that like a place that you've traveled?
No, I've been in Central America, but I'm not so much Latin America. But
Okay.
yeah, I feel like
Well,
currently I'm in Miami, so that's kind of like Latin America.
Are you going to Buenos Aires for the Avalanche Summit in October?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
nice.
Mhm.
That'll be a good breakthrough into Latin America for a number of us, I think. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today. We do have a pretty warm episode. So like I said, we're starting in LATAM. We're going to visit Argentina. We're just going to talk a little bit more generally about Latin America. And then we go to the slightly colder area of Europe. There's still not necessarily snow on the ground, but we're going to talk a little bit about what is going on in terms of technology and Bitcoin mining in Europe. So that'll be pretty exciting. And then we're going to have some warm Europe. We're going to go to Spain, talk about their crypto-friendly city, which maybe we'll compare it to some of the crypto-friendly cities we're seeing in LATAM, but who knows? And then we're going to end just with some general news about Asia and what's going on in Asia and what the sentiment around Asia is. So this is not country-specific news, but more so we're talking about the entirety of the continent and just how people are feeling about it.
It's a climate sandwich. It's a climate sandwich.
Okay, let's go.
Warm on the front, back, and cold in the middle.
Okay, let's talk about Argentina. So before we go super into it, do you know anything about the president of Argentina?
I know that he's going to. There's so much change happening there right now, and I mean, you're on one side of the coin, on the other. But I feel like it's in that ugly place right now, where in order to get whole again, you kind of have to rip it all down and start from scratch. And so, yeah, I know that he is. He's making a lot of changes, and it looks pretty ugly, but I think that it is a huge push in the kind of crypto DeFi world, because it's forcing people into our Web3 environment, and that's amazing because it is kind of like a safe hold for these countries that are going through these changes. It's like not the first one we've seen, with like countries adopting, but this is on the people's side. It's not forced by a government, it's on a people's side, and I think it's going to be pretty amazing to watch this go down.
It's pretty exciting. He is a really interesting dude. I believe it's Javier Milei, Milei. So he was just voted in November. He's now the president. And in December, a lot of news was coming out about how he was already devaluing the nation's currency, which is a little bit interesting. But everybody knew going in that he was super pro Bitcoin. So we aren't surprised to see him have like the economic reform or anything like that.
As far as like devaluing the currency goes, though, like if you've been so socialist for so long, and you have this fake currency that isn't really worth anything, how do you get people to buy in? How do you get new countries to buy in, and new people, new economies to buy in? You kind of have to devalue yourself so that you can start to build up again. So I see how that's so shitty for the people there, but they have an out. They can buy some USDT.
Well, that is what we're going to talk about. So in Argentina specifically, people are using something called a crypto cave. And what I thought was interesting about this is that they voted in someone who was really Bitcoin friendly. And then they realized that that means Bitcoin is going to be regulated. And so people now don't want to buy Bitcoin in Argentina. So they are looking at how to buy stablecoins, primarily USDT. They're looking at how to participate in DeFi, but of course it's not 100% legal there because it's not super regulated. So you don't know what you're allowed to do or not allowed to do. And so people are like using VPNs, going underground, using peer-to-peer exchanges more than anything else. and just trying to hedge their bets against what's going on with their personal currency. But we're calling these crypto caves, just like we used to call them finance caves way back in times of like war and turmoil. So it's just kind of interesting to see what's going on. I don't know, I like seeing people take things into their own hands, but it is pretty high risk for them.
I think this is like the narrative of why this all started. This is like how this came to be. So to see it in action is like, you know, as we're moving towards regulation for Bitcoin and everything else, like that's great. And we're moving forward. But this is like legitimately when your country is collapsing, we have an out for you because there's no, I don't know, man. It's like people taking care of each other and themselves, like you said, right? When you can't, this is the whole narrative is that you can't control your governments when they get this big. You can't control what they do. And so how do you protect yourself? Well,
and you can't trust them. So Argentina has a 32-year high inflation rate of over 211% right now. I wouldn't trust my government with any economic policy or reform, right? I mean, I already don't, and we're not at that wild amount of inflation, let alone somewhere that's like feeling less stable. We're also seeing these crypto caves come up in countries like Cuba, Venezuela, Iran. It's not a surprise, but I wonder what's going to come of it. Are we going to see more balkanization of fiat, or are we just going to see fiat go by the wayside in the next few years?
I don't know if we'll see it go by like the wayside in the next few years, but I think that it'll definitely have an impact because once people are used to using these currencies, how do you transition them back to something that wasn't secure in the first place? Right?
True. We are seeing, also unsurprisingly in this vein, we are seeing that Argentina is leading stablecoin adoption throughout Latin America. This isn't a surprise considering that we just talked about crypto caves and about how the Argentinian peso is performing, but it is interesting to see that Argentina is the leader here. They are adopting something. They are learning how to use a different type of currency and they're using it day to day.
Yeah. I mean, it makes the most sense for them. That's why, you know, there's a lot of talk about Ponzi schemes and whatever, all this that goes with DeFi. And it's not all like that. Yeah, you can get into some high risk situations if you choose to. But a lot of it is for security and safety and having something that you understand like a USDT, whatever, makes you feel more secure, right? So I think that is extremely valuable. They're not trying, the people in Argentina aren't trying to leverage their money. They're just trying to have it, you know, in an amount that they can understand that isn't going to drop by however much in the next year. Like they can't battle with that, right? So absolutely. It makes the most sense.
So I should note that Argentina still has the most Bitcoin holding, which makes sense considering, again, what they're doing. I might have thought that El Salvador might have had more Bitcoin holdings since they did make that like Bitcoin city. But
yeah, but like I said, there's huge changes happening that are brought on by the people. They're choosing this, right? It's not being imposed on them. So it's normal to see that kind of adoption, I would think.
For sure. But across LATAM, we're seeing other types of massive adoption too. So Brazil, for example, is leading in altcoin adoption. They love Shiba.
I mean, it's a little bit more of like an emotional play in my world. It's awesome. I don't know. I think it's hard to just say, to comment on something like loving on Shiba. I mean, what percent is that? Well, I don't even know. Did you see what percent of them are holding?
Like, no, I just thought that was a fun fact, is that the primary altcoin in Brazil is Shiba.
Yeah, it's, but I mean, to each their own. It's participation is participation. It's just why you're doing it, right? It's a little different.
Here's something else interesting that isn't 100% highlighted in our brief, but is touched on a couple of times today, is that in Latin America, they're seeing less gender disparity in crypto adoption. So this basically means that women are adopting crypto faster in Latin America than anywhere else in the world. But I think this is a really interesting point because historically, women in Latin America might have not had control of the finances of the household or what have you. And so to see them coming forward in this way with crypto, I think it highlights a way that we do have financial disparity in many countries in the world. We don't have necessarily gender equity in terms of finance across the world. And here's one way that we're able to enable that is crypto.
I think about it maybe on a little bit of a backwards note from you. Like, you know, in the United States or Canada or a lot of places in Europe, we're very like pro women go to work and do. And so we're busy and we're kind of in, I know for myself, like I run, you know, these protocols. I have my kids, they all play sports. I'm doing things all the time. I'm here, I'm there. And so to take on anything else feels like a lot if you don't have to. Where in countries where women aren't having the extra role of going to work, maybe it's easy for them to participate, right? Because they're not already busy with having real jobs and things. And I don't know, I feel like I lived in Mexico for quite a while. And a lot of the people that I knew, like the family structure is still more traditional. Mm-hmm. And so maybe it makes sense. Like it's easy for them to kind of have that time to take on and learn and participate in that way.
Yeah, interesting take on it. I have no anecdotal information about Latin America, but I do have anecdotal information about some areas in Africa on that space where we historically have not documented women. And this isn't like an act of colonization. This is within their own society. We weren't actively documenting women, which gave them this interesting role in which they could travel unseen and spend money unseen and what have you. And anyway, that's why there's a very unique entrepreneurship model in Africa for women, because they were typically untaxed. And now that more and more regulation has come in, as people noticed that women were like making money at their jobs and at selling eggs and at offering personal services and that kind of thing, the women are like not happy that they have been recognized because now they're getting taxed. So we're also seeing a higher level of crypto adoption for women in certain areas of Africa, specifically in West Africa, because they're like, I don't want you to know that I have this money and I don't want it to be part of our fiat system.
Yeah, that's a massive point. I think that's extremely important. You know, the things that we do day to day that earn us the little bits here and there. Yeah.
Interesting. You know, not exactly LATAM, maybe a little bit off topic, but it is interesting to see that we are still taking note of different ways that genders are using currency and what's going on with that. Mm-hmm. but that's what's going on in LATAM. So people, they love USDT, Brazilians love Shiba, and everyone's buying it.
Everybody's buying it. You got to have those.
Everyone's buying it. Meanwhile, in Europe, we have already decided that crypto is going to be what it's going to be. And instead of having wars like from coin to coin or fiat to stable coin or anything like that, we're actually looking at people getting really technical and arguing over which graphics card is going to be the best for Bitcoin mining and for their personal investments and for their trading bots and who's going to get it faster. And we are really like, we've moved past the idea of like, wow, maybe I could invest in crypto and that could change my life. Or maybe I could manage my money in a different way, or I don't trust the government. And now we're like building the fanciest bots that we can.
Yeah, it's the arms race. It's like who's gonna it's like exactly what this you know show is about, is who's gonna win this, right? Because those tiny things are what gives you that, you know, fraction of a second faster, better, cheaper, whatever. That's what makes the plays right now, right?
100%. Mm-hmm. So basically right now there's a little bit of a clash between NVIDIA and Tesla about who is going to have the best technology so that your stock investments, so that your AI, so that your crypto investments, so that your partnerships, so that they can be executed the fastest. That's what we're looking at.
Yeah.
Who do you think is going to win?
I don't care who wins. I think it's great that there's two people in the competition, not just one. You know, at this point in the game, it's kind of like all these massive players have emerged. So you know who's participating, right? And it's going to be really hard to play catch up for anybody else. I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible, but there's certain sectors that it just is what it is. But having some sort of healthy competition between there. And I don't know that they'll directly, you know, stay on the same path. Stay on, you know, the exact same path. I don't think it has to be a who will win. They'll find what they're good at, maybe. But I know that's kind of like a shitty answer. Sorry about my language, but I don't know. I don't think anything
I like here is like, you're right. There is competition, but we only compete for things where there is interest. And that means that there's huge investment interest and there's enough money moving that the technical component is important. And that's what we're seeing with some of our DEXs and SEXs now as well, including Fidelity. So Fidelity Physical Bitcoin, which is an ETP, has tried to reduce their fees. And we're seeing this a lot. We saw Uniswap, we're seeing Dank sharding on ETH, we're seeing people trying to make it more efficient. We're seeing these organizations trying to reduce fees, draw in more investment, draw in more activity, because there's so many people joining crypto still.
This is the fun part about capitalism. How do we make it cheaper? How do we make it better? How do we attract more people, right? There becomes actual competition, like you said. And it ends up sometimes working out better for the people. I mean, they cut their fees by like almost 50% or something like that. I don't know. I remember reading.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty massive. But when you think about it long term, for the amount of participants that there can be on a global scale, it makes sense. It's the same way that banks can't compete, right? Like you can't charge what you're charging and expect to capture the market. We know we can do it for less. We know we can do it better. So, I mean, I think it's great that they're taking these moves. They're not just settling at where they are. They're biting for people's attention.
Absolutely. And we do have a lot of asset managers doing this. So we mentioned Fidelity, but there's also Wisdom Tree, CoinShares, Invesco, and more. The reason that I'm saying these names out loud isn't because they've paid us to plug them, but is a reminder to DYOR and don't get comfortable in crypto. So if you're investing, if you're doing that kind of thing, if you're playing daily, if you're playing monthly, if your DOS call are averaging, if you keep your money on a SEX, I don't care. You should be reevaluating them constantly. Like set an alert in your calendar. Don't keep doing the same thing day to day, because the landscape is changing so quickly. You might be overpaying or missing out on a really good opportunity.
Overpaying. And they're not going to send you a weird newsletter, like your bank does. That's like, we're dropping our fees. You got to pay attention.
Some of the Texas in Canada do that. And every time they send me that, I go and I read all their terms to see what else they're like hiding from me, because I'm a crazy person who doesn't trust anybody. Or every time they message and they're like, we are offering 5 new coins. I'm like, oh, what did you cut? And what does that look like to me now, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Just because I'm paranoid.
Informed. You like to be informed. You don't have to say you're crazy. You like to be informed. That's, the whole motive here.
Informed is a really good frame of paranoid. I'm gonna use it. Okay, other big thing that's happening in Europe is that we are seeing a brand new crypto city. Christine, I know you were excited about this. Have you been here?
I have not been here. No, but I think it's pretty cool. I just talk about it.
Go ahead. Yeah.
No, I think that, this is some little small town. It's not like a massive place, but it's a great place to, kind of change this experiment, whatever, because this is traditionally a tourist spot, right? So you have people, generally people who travel, have money, moving to these places. Generally speaking, there's a lot of people who have crypto right now, who are participating. So it's a great opportunity for them to see, kind of like get some sort of stats on like people who are traveling from here and blah, 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 are open to using these sort of things and being able to use it on a day-to-day basis in a way. I was just thinking as I was reading through this article, like I've always got my phone, I'm using my Apple Wallet to just tap and pay and go. Like that would be so nice if I didn't have to off ramp and then do my things like that. Like I could just, make it easy and use it on a day-to-day basis. And I think that's where we're going. You're going to see a lot more of these as these start to roll out. The attention that it's going to draw, people will choose to go there for this reason. It's going to be great for Spain. I think it's a great idea. I'm pretty excited.
It is great for Spain. And I think that little towns like this doing this kind of thing can really act as an MVP for the country, right? So Spain doesn't have a lot of rules about crypto. They have a tax law, but it's not illegal to use it, nor is it encouraged to use crypto. Bitcoin isn't legal tender, but you can still use it to pay for stuff if someone's going to accept it.
Well, it's a lot easier to implement in a small place like that than in a giant city. You got to get everybody on board, right? So it's a lot to do on a smaller basis and then say, okay, is this working? Is this not working? What do we need to do along the way? And you'll disrupt less people's lives. And the people that you make mad are going to leave because it's a tourist place. So it won't be a big deal.
Do you think that moves like this could make, okay, so sometimes on this part of the show, we talk about who is the crypto hub of a particular continent. And so typically in Europe, Berlin and Paris are fighting for or vying for position of that crypto hub. For a while, it was Lisbon, but then Lisbon, Portugal changed their tax rate and Lisbon like fell off. And then
Yeah.
for a while it was Prague, because Prague has all of these like anarchists who are super into crypto and the tax rate is really low, but then it was way too DeFi and not enough Bitcoin. Do you think that this could put Spain on the map of the crypto hub? Like, do you think it'll bring those who want to work in crypto to Spain as well?
Well, the laws aren't. So the reason for Portugal and places like that is that from a tax perspective, it's really nice, right? Like that's what gets you. It's not like where you can spend your money. That the real money will be brought in from, the regulation side of it and what that looks like from a tax perspective. This though, I think, does put them on the map. It depends on how much they adopt it, right? I think that when you have a government who's willing to work with you. Another one is Turkey. Turkey's got a massive now. Istanbul is like the new hot place to be. There's a lot that can kind of make or break you as a hotspot. But generally speaking, I think if you're not trying to be like the tech center or the whatever of it, if you're just an open crypto friendly country, yeah, I mean, it can still definitely put you on the map. Because I would rather live in somewhere that has reasonable laws and I understand what the tax implications are and what's going on than something super shady off the map, right? Like most of us are not willing to uproot and put ourselves in like kind of a weird situation where maybe I can't go back to where I'm from, or who really knows. But if they can develop a good place where you can not only be comfortable with working and what that looks like, but actually participating in a day-to-day transactional life, I think, yeah, of course you can put yourself on the map that way. This is one tiny drop in the bucket, but it's a great place to start.
Singapore is also trying to put themselves back on the map. For a while, they were a big crypto hub. It kind of moved closer to Hong Kong, if in the entirety of the Asia market. But Singapore has launched a new budget, and they are really, really doubling down on Web3, on cybersecurity, on AI, and they are primarily looking to upskill people who are already living in Singapore. So if you live in Singapore and you were thinking about becoming a smart contract dev or something like that, this might be your chance. They are actually offering free programs. They're offering scholarships for you to 100% upskill from what you're doing so that you can work in a crypto hub, so you can work in an AI hub, so you can work in a machine learning hub, which I think is pretty cool.
This is the kind of thing that changes you and puts you on the map, from a big perspective. I mean, having educated people in forward-thinking economies is what you want. It's how you develop and move forward. I mean, I don't think getting rid of, and never mind, I'm not going to say that. I think that it's a very progressive move, asking people to come and incentivizing them to learn. And this is the direction that we're going. So why would you not want to be on board with that, right?
Yes.
And I don't even say about like putting them on the map. Of course they want to be put on the map or whatever, but just to maintain, some sort of position of importance and be up to par. Like we're really doing ourselves a disservice on this side of the world.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially when you look at all of the partnerships. So Singapore in particular has their monetary authority of Singapore has partnered with the monetary authorities in Japan, Switzerland, UK, and other places. So this isn't just being like, we're going to upskill and then hope for the best, but it's rather, hey, we've actually partnered with all of these different groups. We all are going to be bringing this in, but we may as well lead that talent pool. And then likewise, they have allowed nearly 20 crypto businesses within the last few months, including Ripple and blockchain.com, to enter the Singapore playing field. And so I think that this is another move towards putting them on the map. It's not just the educated populace. It's not just being able to create the technology and then try to sell it somewhere else, but it's, hey, our whole nation is using it, right?
Right. Yeah. What you know and who you know.
So one of the things that we like to talk about, as I said, is who's going to be the crypto hub. So it's possible that Singapore is going to be the crypto hub, but we also have Japan and South Korea and Taiwan and Hong Kong. So with all of the news that we've covered, with all of the news that you've read, and with just kind of the last couple of years of context, do you think that this, I want to say this like face off, do you think that it is within Asia face off? Like, are we going to have a European crypto hub and an Asian crypto hub? Or are we going to have someone like some continent come out on top?
I think there will be major players in all of it, but as a general rule, doesn't Asia win? I don't know.
They do have more regulatory clarity than
They do, and they have more people. And
so even in terms of Bitcoin mining, there's now regulatory clarity in Singapore, Japan, Hong Kong, South Korea, basically all of Southeast Asia. I think we're still waiting on India, if you want to count that in the Asian kind of hub. But in America, we have an emergency investigation into Bitcoin mining. So we have two very different approaches to how this is going.
an emergency investigation. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Well, because of all the energy that may or may not be used.
Yeah, no, I know all about it. And it's not that to say that these things aren't like important and to look at things. I just can't. It's really sad what we're doing, putting ourselves behind the 8 ball. And like I said, I don't know if there's going to be, I think just like in the world right now, there's important people and players kind of all over the place. I think that can stay the same, but it'll be the same as like the majority of our TVs come from X. I'm not going to name countries right now, but I think it will end up being a bit like that, where the majority of certain parts of tech come from mostly Asian countries, which is fine. It's fine. I'm not against anybody. I think it's just how the rate at which we're allowed to develop and the rate at which we're allowed to participate. So
I'm not against anybody either. It's just frustrating when we see Bhutan having a $500 million investment in Bitcoin mining, and then the states saying, we should probably cease all Bitcoin mining. Like, how far behind do you want to fall? Right? Yeah. Like, are you really protecting your people, or are you preventing them?
No, I don't agree with it at all. I don't. But I mean, that happens to be where I live. So
absolutely. All right. That is the crypto arms race for today. Christine. Okay. Do you have any final thoughts? Is there anywhere you want to explore next week in the crypto arms race?
Oh, that's a good question. No, not specifically. I mean, I feel
like everywhere but the Antarctic,
Yeah, that literally was just what was in my head. Is like, where are you not covered? I mean, I feel like I watched these and we talk about all the major players all the time. Even today, we kind of went like boop, 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 boop across the world, and that was it. I would like to know about the crypto arms race in Ireland, Kara.
I'll look. I will double down on that.
Let me know.
As a business hub, I bet they have some pretty good tech and some pretty good offices.
Yeah, let me know.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today,
Absolutely.
Christine. With that, I have to say, go FUD yourself.